In an AFC Championship game against the Ravens, Troy Polamalu memorized a play that Baltimore's offense ran early in the first quarter. So when that play was called again in the fourth quarter, he knew where the ball was going to be. He used his remarkable football awareness to send the Steelers to the Super Bowl. But he almost never discovered this talent because his childhood was steering him down a self-destructive path. For a long time, his destination looked to be prison or worse. How did Troy change everything to become one of the best safeties ever? Troy Polamalu was the fifth child in his family. His father left when he was so young he didn't even remember. Troy's mother was trying to raise the 5 kids while on welfare. The situation was too difficult for any one person to handle. He was the youngest, but Troy was seeing it all. His sisters having babies in high school, his brother in and out of jail. He started stealing food from grocery stores and breaking into buildings. He was walking on that predetermined path to nowhere. But it was his mother who broke it for him. She sent Troy out of California on a trip to Oregon to visit her brother and her brother's wife. Troy fell in love with the quiet way of life they led. His environment in California was turning him into someone he was not, and Oregon felt more like home. He begged his mother to let him stay there, and she did. Troy was actually born Troy Amua, but once he moved, he decided to change his last name to his mother's maiden name. Now, he was Troy Polamalu. He soon started playing organized sports for the first time. He played 3 varsity sports: baseball, basketball, and football. Troy was finally stepping outside his predetermined path. He showed his aggressive nature on the gridiron and played both sides of the ball. His junior year in high school was incredible. He had 1,040 yards rushing and 22 touchdowns. Pair that with his 65 tackles and 8 interceptions, Polamalu was unstoppable. He was first-team All-State. The move to his uncle's place in Oregon seemed to be the right decision. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses from this point. Troy still had to face some more demons. Being first-team All-State was a big deal. If Troy could follow up his junior year with an impressive senior year, he'd be able to get a ticket to college, a reality he never imagined years ago. But in his last year in high school, he had a lot of injuries. Bruised kidney, sprained shoulder, torn back muscles. He only played in 4 games and was only a 3-star recruit. No one was paying attention to Troy anymore. His chance seemed to be slipping away. Until another uncle stepped in who just so happened to be USC's offensive coordinator. He convinced the head coach, Pete Carroll, to give Troy a scholarship. Troy was saved by an uncle yet again. He was going to play for the Trojans. He had to prove he wasn't just getting a handout from his uncle, though. His freshman year, he was a backup, but he made the most of his opportunities. He showcased his athleticism, his motor that never turned off, and his newfound work ethic. By his sophomore year, Troy was a defensive starter, and people were taking notice of the wild-haired kid who was flying around the field. By his junior year, he actually was everywhere on the field. In the backfield with a sack and 13 tackles for a loss, in coverage with 3 interceptions, 2 of them being pick sixes, terrorizing ball carriers with 2 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery, on special teams with 3 blocked punts, and he led his team with 118 tackles. Troy earned first-team All-American honors his junior year, but just like in high school, Troy had injuries throughout his senior year once again. He still earned first-team All-American honors, but missed his Senior Bowl and draft combine. People were seeing the massive impact he was having on the game, but were the injuries going to catch up with him? NFL scouts thought Troy, at 5'10" and barely over 200 pounds, was already too small to play safety. Many even disliked his aggressive playing style, saying it wouldn't translate well into the pros. Adding to that these nagging injuries, there was a lot of doubt surrounding him. Troy was projected to go late in the first round or early second round. Until Pittsburgh stepped up to the plate, surprising everyone and deciding to take a chance on the USC kid, drafting him 16th overall. The Steelers didn't care that he was undersized. They saw his athleticism, and they saw something special in his uniquely aggressive play. The problem was that defensive coordinator at the time, Tim Lewis, didn't quite see it. Polamalu wasn't showing him enough in practice or the games, so he didn't start a single game his rookie season. It was a humiliating experience for this first-round draft pick to play primarily on special teams. Another setback for Troy. He'd have no uncles to get him out of this hole. Could he finally dig himself out? Or were the critics right about the undersized safety? After the 2003 season, Tim Lewis was let go and Dick LeBeau became the new defensive coordinator. A golden opportunity for Troy to prove he belonged here. Not only did Troy work his hardest, not only did LeBeau also see his special talent, but Polamalu had revered LeBeau as being a true father figure to him. And in 2004, Polamalu took off like a Scud missile, figuratively and literally. Polamalu's defensive dominance emerged, as did his unique talent. That impeccable timing. It was like he had a sixth sense, knowing exactly when the ball would be snapped and blasting into the offense before they had a chance to react. Polamalu later talked about his timing ability. What's funny about it is I didn't think about it. Sometimes I just found myself going and doing it, and that's the best way I can explain it, because I'll be very honest, when I thought about it, that's when I jumped off sides. Polamalu elaborated that he would over-prepare before the games, that way he wouldn't have to think about it during the play. He just let his instincts kick in. And in 2004, his second year, he made himself known in the league. He became a fixture in the Pittsburgh defense, and along with 97 tackles and 5 interceptions, he led his team to a 15-1 record. That was the impact the Pittsburgh organization knew he could make. As a second-year player, he was already leading the defense to being the #1 scoring defense in the league, only allowing 15.7 points per game. His third year was more of the same. He was third in Defensive Player of the Year voting with his 92 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks, and 7 tackles for a loss. He kept that Steeler defense in the top 5, got the team to an 11-5 record, and they motored all the way through the playoffs to end up winning the Super Bowl. Something Pittsburgh hadn't done in 26 years. That's a good way to become Pittsburgh royalty. But Polamalu wasn't done. Far from it. He played a total of 12 years in the NFL, all of them with the Steelers. He helped to restore the old days of Pittsburgh defensive dominance. This unit was striking fear into their opponents for the next decade and terrorizing the AFC North. This was a bad time to be in Baltimore, Cincinnati, and especially Cleveland. In Polamalu's career, he had a total of 32 interceptions, and 8 of them were against the Browns. They won the division 5 years during Troy's tenure, and they were always in the mix. They went back to the Super Bowl 2 more times and won it once more. That was Super Bowl 43 against the Cardinals, a game they would never have made it to had it not been for key plays made by Polamalu in the AFC Championship game against the Ravens. This included Polamalu using his special instincts to stop a QB sneak by Joe Flacco on 4th and 1. And when the Ravens were only down 2 at the end of the game, Troy read the play perfectly so he could pick off Flacco for a pick 6 to seal the game for the Steelers. You see, Polamalu had a legendary career by the numbers. 2 Super Bowl wins in 12 years, 783 career tackles, 56 for a loss, 12 sacks, 32 interceptions, 14 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries. But those big stats don't even show his true impact on the field. It was that intangible quality that you've never seen a player consistently display. It was how quickly he was able to understand the play, which allowed his body to instinctively ruin the offensive possession. Troy Polamalu has since become a first-ballot Hall of Famer. His speech was incredible, in which he told us some fascinating things about his life. He referenced his obsession with the game of football and how he modeled it after the greats who came before him.
Dickens, Beethoven, Demostheni. These great men were known to have a beast-like work ethic, coupled with an unwavering ability to create until perfection, beyond what most believe the human body will allow.
Troy was different. He didn't just model his work ethic after past football players. He was studying writers, composers, and statesmen of ancient Athens. Polamalu also spoke of his Samoan roots and Polynesian heritage, which he credits to his success. I come from a culture where discipline, humility, and respect are not only the foundation to our survival, but the key to our existence. Troy and his wife Theodora now host a charity event called The Resilience, a football-inspired project that raises money and awareness for the Neighborhood Resilience Project, helping to instill growth and prosperity to communities that are underserved. The program hopes to help young kids realize their full potential, to find the right path like Troy Polamalu was able to do. He was one of a kind. Despite his small size, he was a hard-hitting safety. He used his drive to not only push himself, but that entire Pittsburgh defense to greatness, leading to 2 Super Bowl wins. Troy even won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2010, but besides all of the physical dominance we saw, it was always his mental approach that put him in a league of his own.